In this episode, we're talking about how to eat healthier and the principles behind how to eat healthier. And I talk about how my diet has changed, transformationally changed my life. And as you will be able to tell, I am extremely enthusiastic about it. And I put it very bluntly what will happen down the road if you don't eat healthier. And I only do that because I want you as a person to be healthier, and that's it. So don't take my enthusiasm as anything negative. It's positive. I want you to change, and I want you to change now. All right. What is up, everyone? How you doing? In this episode, we are talking how to eat healthier, and I'm going to keep this. Within 3 principles. It's going to be things that sound self-explanatory, but I'm going to get into the details of them. And sometimes things sound self-explanatory, but we still, for some reason, don't do them, especially when it comes to eating healthy. And I have some things that I want to talk about, especially when it gets to science and why we should avoid these things. But the 3 things are: ditch fast food, ditch artificial preservatives, and ditch processed foods. All sound things like our mom or our parents would have told us when we were growing up anyway. And, if we don't do these things, it's not... the word being unhealthy is too broad for me or anyone, and it doesn't really have a consequence. My experience from human beings is they don't really take an action unless they hear a very severe consequence. And being unhealthy, especially when you're young and you're fit and you're running around, doesn't seem like a bad consequence. But consequences that we should be talking about are not just unhealthy: obesity and diabetes and heartburn, which leads to more chronic issues, cancer. All of these things lead and are caused by, from what I very strongly believe, our diets. And so you are what you eat. And if you eat like absolute shit for 30 years of your life, I cannot imagine that you are going to be in a good position. And not just a little overweight. We're talking about chronic health issues that make you have to go to the doctor very frequently because, I don't know, you have diabetes or whatever the case is. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a dietitian. I'm very transparent with that stuff. What I am is someone who read up on the material, read up on the literature, and also for myself had a life-changing experience when it came to changing my diet. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you what I went through. I want to say for 15 years of my life, 10 to 15 years of my life, I always suffered through chronic heartburn. And I don't know why I never did this, but I never, when I was younger, put 2 and 2 together that a lot of my diet was causing my heartburn. I get you eat a lot too much hot sauce and you drink, some alcohol, you're going to have heartburn the next day. But I wasn't eating hot sauce and drinking alcohol every day. So I didn't always entirely put 2 and 2 together that outside of those things, other foods and liquids that I was putting in my body had an effect on my heartburn and my chronic heartburn. And it took me about literally a few months ago to read the literature on this and understand that having chronic heartburn for many, many years leads to a very high increase or a higher chance of getting esophageal cancer. And so my belief is that if I didn't change my ways and I kept doing my lifestyle, where I'd have chronic heartburn every day, and the way that I had to remedy that is Tums and Prilosec and over the counter stuff. If I kept doing that for multiple 10, 20 years, there's a good chance that something wrong could have happened with my esophagus. And so my experience has been this: 10 to 15 years, severe chronic heartburn. Always have went to the doctor, talk about it. We had Prilosec and stronger versions of Prilosec that has been prescribed, and I would try it for a month and I would do better, and then I would never change my real lifestyle of my diet. And so the next month when I got off Prilosec, it would come back. And so my remedies were like a Band-Aid. It's like a Band-Aid trying to cover like a cut off arm. It's not going to work. There's an underlying reason for why something like that happened to me. It's because of my diet. And it wasn't until, and this is why I encourage everyone to read as much as you possibly can. I say read 3 books a month, nonfiction books about things that you can learn, continue learning. Because it wasn't until I started getting into eating healthier and wanting to understand it more, I really wanted to understand why the hell I had such bad heartburn. And so I read a few books, and one of the books gave me a step-by-step guide without using any over-the-counter medicine, anything. It's just completely changing my diet. And so I changed my diet for 4 weeks, and I didn't use Prilosec, I didn't use Tums, I didn't use anything a doctor would prescribe to me. And in those 4 weeks, I completely eliminated my heartburn, and I've been living with a new diet for 3 or 4 months. My heartburn is basically non-existent. And and for me, that is what changed me on my whole outlook of eating healthier. It's not just a matter of, this vague term of not being healthy. It's a matter of the food that you put in your body will have downstream effects on your health. And when we say health, we mean things that are not going to put your body in a long-term sustainable way. Meaning, I don't know, how long can you live with severe diabetes and have that go unchecked? And if you do have it checked, that's another thing. And I'm sure that there are people who still eat healthy that have gotten into that. But I'm sure it's a very much higher likelihood that you get things like that because you eat unhealthy. And now you have a new lifestyle of having to deal with diabetes. Or it could be a million other things. I'm not a doctor. I don't know every single type of illness. But the ones that are relevant to me that I can think of, for me, was esophageal cancer, because I knew that if I continued with horrible heartburn in my esophagus, it leads to a much higher likelihood of that. Diabetes, people who just, I think, very high sugar content, or salt content, and so it leads to actual illnesses. So we have to stop talking about just being healthy as a vague thing here. It leads to real illnesses that we can, I don't want to say 100% prevent, because again, I'm not a medical doctor here, but I very strongly believe, after my experience of changing my lifestyle, changing my diet, changing the food and liquids that I put in my body, having a downstream effect on my overall health as a person. And so you change your diet, you have a very high likelihood of avoiding chronic illnesses down the road. And so that has been my experience on why I am very gung ho about this. I just woke up this morning and had my green tea here, and for breakfast I had 3 celery sticks. And for my wife, my wife hates celery, but for some of you, that might sound like a disgusting breakfast that tastes like grass. For me, I actually got used to it, and it's fine. And it's those things of getting used to a new lifestyle. When you are so used to processed crap, then the good, healthy, natural whole foods that we should actually be eating as living creatures start tasting bad. And when that happens, you're down a path of destruction for your body. So I'm going to get into these 3 things here. I write this in my book, and I encourage, it's one part of my book. And again, it's one of those things which really aggravates me a lot, because these are self-explanatory things that I feel like are known, but for some reason, not that many people follow it. And then we all look at these high rates of illnesses in the United States and these chronic illnesses, and we're trying to figure out how it happened. And it's right in our freaking face. We're eating shitty food and we're drinking crappy liquids. And what the hell do you expect? We weren't here. Our bodies are not designed to drink Coca-Colas every day, binge drink alcohol, drink Snickers bars, and intake all this processed food that companies have scientifically merged together to taste good for our tongues, and expect us to have long-term healthy outcomes. It aggravates me so much because it's like so stupid. Everyone complains about the high rates of these illnesses, and then I don't hear much people put that much emphasis on this stuff, which is why when schools have these healthy eating programs, I respect that, but I think we need to do a lot more. Your life is in your freaking hands, and if you want to continue eating like absolute shit for your whole life, then you cannot complain in 30, 40 years when your body looks like absolute shit, and that leads to illnesses. I feel bad if you're in that situation, but you need to change your damn diet. You literally are what you eat, and if you eat shit, you will be shit, and I don't want you to be that, which is why I make this podcast. But as you can tell, it aggravates me because I lived my whole life not thinking like this. I wish there was more information out there. Wish there was more people pushing this agenda for people to eat more naturally. Because if I didn't take this initiative on myself to read this type of stuff and change my diet and change my lifestyle, then I wouldn't have changed it. No one was aggressively telling me, hey, you better change this now, or in 10, 20 years, you might have esophagus cancer. And so, and that annoys me a little bit, but part of it's on me. Most of it's on me. It's my ownership for my own body. I get that. But there's too much information out there that's well known to people, like the stuff that I read in these books, that I will link in this podcast. Too much information out there for people to just allow everyone to be causing their own damn illnesses. And for me, extremely, extremely disappointed with just the whole system. It's just, for so long, living with chronic heartburn, it was a nightmare dealing with it. Very uncomfortable, painful, and that's just one side effect. The long term I already told you about, what could have happened, and multiple doctor visits. Everyone's trying to put a Band-Aid on a solution that needs a better underlying solution. We stopped thinking of Band-Aids. And for me, I think part of it's on the owners. Part of the owners is on doctors too, to stop just prescribing Prilosec. Like, prescribe a lifestyle change, a diet change. So I don't know the perfect solution here for how to change it. I do know that eating like shit is causing our population to get more chronic illnesses. And I do know that it's on you as a person to change that. And it wasn't until I changed it that I have felt the benefits of it. And no one has pushed me to it. It was really just myself. It was myself that said, okay, this is getting ridiculous. I'm going to be in pain my entire life. And I was just thinking pain at first until I read the book, and I realized, oh, wow, if I keep doing this, this is not just pain anymore. This is chronic illness, potentially death. If we're talking about cancer. So it wasn't until I read the information, I took ownership and read the information. This is why I think that every single one of you need to be reading as much information as possible. Screw the fiction books, honestly. Read nonfiction books and try to learn, because there's hidden information out there. And it's not hidden. There's just too much information to tell people. And they're hidden in books and libraries. And I am on a constant quest to learn all this stuff, because it's very frequently where I pick up a book and I learn something that I'd never learned before, and I change my lifestyle, and I say, holy crap, how was I living for 30 years without knowing this information beforehand? And it's those continuous reinforcements of, I read a book and I learn something and I'm taken back because, like, wow, how did I not know that? And I change my lifestyle and I get better. Just like this diet example. But almost every book that I read, it's something very similar. Sometimes it's drastic change. Sometimes it's small change. Every once in a while you read something that's like, you don't really have any benefit from. I get that. But it's, for me, my experience has been, I learn a lot. And if you're not reading this information, if you're not trying to be on a constant quest to learn, then this information is not going to just pop out to you. People aren't just going to come to you, walk on the street and talk about the few things that I'm going to talk to you about here. Yeah, your mom and your dad and whoever your guardians are, they're probably going to ask you to eat healthier. I get that. But no one's going to do this for you but you. You need to get informed. You need yourself to take ownership and be a better person moving forward. And a lot of this stuff is just information. Yeah, it's just read, be on a constant quest to learn, and you'll be better off. So let's talk about the three things. The three things I have are: ditch fast food. I said that. Ditch artificial preservatives, and ditch processed foods. What you'll notice is, and I'm not telling any secret here, this is not a secret or something that's not probably already well known, is our diets should be, our diet should be whole foods that we can see being grown and not processed. So a banana, I can see a banana being grown. Okay, I can eat that. A Snickers bar, you're not seeing a Snickers bar, an Oreo, whatever the hell, a Cheez-It, a potato chip. You're not seeing those grown in the ground. Those are taking, I don't even know what the hell they put in it, taking some kind of handful of ingredients, merging it together into one food, and keep getting notifications on my computer. How do I stop these? Okay. They're merging it into one food, and then scientists, they test it. And then if it doesn't taste well for certain people when they do the taste test, then guess what? Then they're adding some salt or sugar or fat or whatever. but their whole goal is not to make a food that will sustain you long term and be healthy for you. They're making a food that will make profit and that'll taste good. So, and those and make a profit and taste good and healthy are completely opposite for the most part. There are probably some companies that can do this really well, but when we're talking about some of these shitty foods, processed foods, just don't do it. Stick to whole foods. So vegetables, fruits, things that you can see being grown, beans, rice. If you eat meat, you eat grass-fed meat, and so celery, just like my celery. If you eat all the processed junk, you're not eating things that'll be healthy for you. And part of the issue here is a banana or celery or apples. I know they're farmers grow them and they're sold at supermarkets, but they're not heavily marketed like a Doritos. Doritos, all these companies that make these crappy foods market the crap out of them. And so that's another part of the problem is that you don't just see you don't see a marketing campaign for bananas. You see a marketing campaign for Doritos. And maybe there's some, right, you could probably correct me a little bit on this. Maybe there's a Whole Foods campaign, advertising campaign that, talks about their healthy foods, and there's a banana in there. I get it. But I'm just saying, for the most part, all the marketing campaigns, they're talking about the crappy foods. They're companies that have created this food and they're trying to push it on you and market the crap out of it. They're not marketing the crap out of apples. They're definitely not marketing the crap out of celery. But I love celery. They're not marketing the crap out of that stuff. And so part of it is we have to probably stop watching these nonstop television and start reading more often. But then second is try to stop being tricked by these marketing campaigns. It might taste really good, but it's not going to be good for you. So fast food. You need to learn to cook. I had no idea how to cook until I think I was like 25, 27. I knew how to cook, but I didn't really know how to cook until I was about 25, 27. And I read a book. I think it's called The Basics of Food by Mark Bittman. I forget the exact title of the book. I'm going to put it in the description. But my point is, if 2 points, if you're too used to fast food, there's two reasons for that. One, or if you're eating too much fast food and you're used to it and you love it and you don't want to go away from, first of all, that's a disaster. But there's 2 points here. One is you need to learn how to cook, because if you're so used to fast food and you think it tastes so good and even if it tastes healthy and all this stuff and you think you're on the right path and you don't see any issues with eating a lot of fast food, then my saying here is when you get, what is my saying? When you get too used to the smell of shit, you start feeling like it's normal. And so if you've just been doing nothing but eating fast food, you start to think that that's normal. And then occasionally, if you ever eat like a home-cooked meal with using natural ingredients and all that stuff, then you're like, oh, wow, that's a really good home-cooked meal. It tastes different. And it's that like, I don't know if it's a shock, but it's that big change that you can tell the difference of fast food and healthy food. So if you keep eating fast food and you don't get any different types of food, like a home-cooked meal, you can get just so used to it and you think that's the normal until you start having a home-cooked meal and you realize how much fresher it is. So if you're too used to shit, then you're going to feel like it's normal. And so that's one thing. If you're eating too much fast food, it might just feel like it's normal, and it's definitely not. My second point is, if you're eating too much fast food, it might just be a convenience factor for you. And if it's a convenience factor, then again, you need to learn how to cook, because I have a ton of food upstairs in my kitchen, all natural, that I can whip together within 20 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, depending on what it is. So, and if I were to go to get something from fast food, to get in my car, um, go drive down there, pick it up, come back, take about 10 to 20 minutes or more, depending on where I'm going. So if it's a convenience factor for you, then you need to start shopping better and put the right foods in your kitchen cabinets. And you need to learn how to cook, because if you're in your head, if you're like, oh, damn, I have to go right now, cook something that I've never cooked before. It's going to take me like an hour. I'd rather just go finish this in 15 minutes, go get some food from McDonald's. Then you need to learn how to cook, because not everything takes an hour. And the more, it's one of those things when you're trying to learn something new, it's like a mental blocker. Like you don't want to do it. When you think about learning something new, it's just like, I already know this other way. Let me just do this other way. And until you break past that mental block and you just try it and you learn it and you do it, it becomes more natural. And now cooking is easy. It comes like second nature to you. You just whip up something and you eat it. And so 2 things there. Stop getting used to the smell of shit. And 2, stop feeling like fast food is more convenient. And in certain cases, I'm sure it is more convenient. If you're on the road and you're driving and taking like a road trip or something, and fast food is on the corner, of course, that's going to be more convenient than a home-cooked meal. You're not even in your kitchen. I get that. But 95 to 99% of the time, it's not more convenient. It's just that you are not able to cook. And you need to start learning how to cook and then buying the right foods and putting it in your kitchen. That is fast food. Avoid it. It is a nightmare. And if you're getting used to this, if you're getting used to that taste, you know something's wrong. 2 is ditch artificial preservatives. And here's the thing. Even if you think you're buying something healthy at a supermarket, there's like a 70% chance that it's not healthy if it's not a whole food. An example is Raisin Bran cereal. Raisin Bran cereal initially sounds healthy. But I used to buy Raisin Bran at Stop and Shop, and until I knew more of this information, I read into it. I would buy Raisin Bran, and it would taste so damn good. I don't even know how the hell that happened, but it tastes delicious, and I loved it. And then I started shopping at Trader Joe's. And Trader Joe's, first of all, you all need to start shopping at Trader Joe's. It is the best supermarket as far as health. Their staff is amazing, but also it's the healthiest food. So I started shopping at Trader Joe's and I got Raisin Bran, and it tasted horrible. And it wasn't until I read the information in the book and I studied the literature that I realized, when I looked at the back of the box and Stop and Shop's Raisin Bran, it was all garbage. I don't know what high fructose corn syrup was in it. That was one that I could pronounce, but I don't know. The point that I was going to make is that if you can't pronounce it, if you can't pronounce the ingredients on the back of the food that you're buying, then you don't buy it. It's not because you're illiterate. It's because whatever the hell is going on, it seems like a scientific experiment. It's because those things aren't normally found in food, and they shouldn't be. So if you can't pronounce it, you've never seen the word before, then don't buy it. It's not a whole food. It's not a natural food. It's not something that you can see be grown. It's something the scientists in the lab put together to try to either preserve the food longer or to make it taste better. And those things, again, taste better and for profit, and you having long-term health, they go almost opposite when it comes to some of these things. And so when I checked the boxes of Trader Joe's, it was all natural stuff. There was no bullcrap ingredients in it. It was just natural Raisin Bran. And now I eventually started eating so much of it that I got used to it. So I got used to the shit so much that it started to taste fine and normal at Stop and Shop. And then I got the real stuff, and I was like, oh, wow, this is different. And then I got used to it. Now I'm getting used to the healthy stuff. You can get used to it. It's just got to get away from that initial burst of whatever the hell is in that food that you're eating, sugar or salt or fat. A lot of these companies, they find the perfect formula of sugar, salt, and fat, and to really optimize your taste buds, not your health, your taste buds. So look at the back of your ingredients. If you cannot pronounce it, or if it sounds like a scientific experiment going on, don't buy it. It is bullcrap. And avoid, when you do see high fructose corn syrup or corn syrup, avoid that. It is that has been linked to higher chances of getting cancer, and it's just generally not good for you. The issue that you'll see if you're not doing everything, well, if you are buying just normal things at Stop and Shop and you're not thinking health conscious, like Whole Foods, sort of like I'm talking about right here, then I can probably guarantee 60 to 70% of your food has corn syrup in it. Beans, potato chips, ketchup. Ketchup doesn't even initially sound horrible for you, but ketchup has it in. But when you start buying natural stuff, like what natural stuff of what I eat? What am I eating here? So green tea. I have celery. I like to have a banana shake. So that is banana. That is rice milk. That is pea protein, all natural pea protein. That is almond butter. Then I like to eat almonds. And then I have broccoli and brown rice. And you get the point. No one's no one's putting corn syrup in that. But when you start buying things that are in boxes and bags, you need to be very careful when you look at that back of the when you look at the back of the ingredients there. It's a high chance if you're like in a Stop and Shop that you're going to see some corn syrup, especially if you're just going for price, which is what I used to do a lot. I used to go cheapest price. Usually the cheapest price is the worst ingredients. So just look at the back. If it says high fructose corn syrup, get used to not eating it. It is not good for you. And then also for meat and dairy, buy grass-fed. Always go grass-fed. The reason is if they're not grass-fed, the meat and the dairy from the animals have a very high imbalance of omega-3s to omega-6s. Their omega-6s usually are extremely high. So sometimes it could be a 1-to-40 ratio. And usually, if you go grass-fed and it's all natural, so grass-fed beef or grass-fed milk, if you're doing it all natural, your omega-3s and omega-6s should be basically 1-to-1 ratio. It shouldn't be 1-to-40. That's a crazy imbalance. And so that imbalance does two things. Well, it does probably a handful of things, but there's two things. The imbalance plays a role in inflammation and the growth of cancer cells. And so if you just continue drinking a lot of maybe milk that is from a cow with a diet that isn't just grass-fed, it's probably filled with like grains and other stuff. It's going to have a high imbalance of omega-3s and omega-6s. And if you eat meat that isn't grass-fed, same thing. You are what you eat. And the animals, same thing. They eat their diet, and their diet, unless it's grass-fed, it's usually stuff that has a lot of preservatives in it. And so that goes and passes back onto you. And if you eat that, then you'll have a bad imbalance. And you don't want a bad imbalance because you don't want inflammation and you don't want a higher risk of cancer. That is avoid artificial preservatives. Third point is ditch processed foods. And a lot of this just re-summarizes what I'm saying here. Don't buy a Snickers bar, Cheez-Its, Hot Pockets, DiGiorno pizza, all that stuff that was not grown, that was produced in a lab, and that is shit. And so fruits, an apple, a banana, celery, carrots, broccoli, almonds, rice, beans, all those things I can see being grown, and that's why I eat them. And those are the things you need to eat. And And the last thing here is when you're eating processed foods, especially like a snack, when you have a midday snack of processed food, let's just say it's a Snickers bar or potato chips or something, um, it cause it could cause a spike in your insulin, especially if you have an empty stomach and you just want a snack and you have some crappy processed foods. It can cause a spike in your insulin, which has been linked to higher rates of cancer. And so that's why for me, instead of my midday snacks, a lot are a banana smoothie or something where I have blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, bananas, rice milk, pea protein, and almond butter. And so that would be a better big midday snack than a Snickers bar and some Cheez-Its, which I used to do a lot. So I understand the desire for it. But until you read the literature and you understand what's happening here, and you don't want long-term illnesses when you get older, or even could happen in shorter time periods, but usually it's continuous eating like crap for long terms is going to lead to illnesses. You don't want that. So those are the three things. Other thing I'd probably add is that, if you're drinking a ton of liquids, I would stick with mostly water. For the most part. So some tea here. Every once in a while, I do have some coffee, and sometimes I love coffee, so when I drink coffee, I do like to drink a lot of it, which is not a good thing. But so I try to stick mostly with water, green tea, and coffee, and occasionally I have a drink of alcohol. But I try to limit everything outside of the water and green tea as much as I can. Our bodies are not meant to be drinking diet Coca-Cola and 5 Budweisers a day and expect us to be healthy human beings and live longer. Not the case. So those are the principles to be eating healthier. I showed my enthusiasm for this earlier, and I think it's still showing, but you need to just get the hell out of whatever diet you're in right now. If it's not whole foods, and you're eating fast food, you're eating things with high fructose corn syrup, you're eating things that you can't pronounce, you're eating and you're drinking alcohol and Coca-Cola and sugar and Nestle sweet tea and all this shit, then in 30 years or in 20 years or in 10 years or in 5 years, you have to expect negative consequences. You have to do it. And I don't know why the hell you would want to do that. Why would you want those negative consequences? It's one of those things. It's with human nature. It's unless the consequence is felt immediately after an action, you sort of feel like there's no consequences. And then boom, 10 years later, it's the big consequence. And you're like, why did it happen? Well, I'm telling you right the hell now why it happened. Don't freaking do it. Eat healthier. Be healthier. Stop being stupid. Stop thinking that there's no consequence just because 10 minutes later, after you have a freaking Big Mac and fries and a Coca-Cola to wash it down, and if you're doing that weekly or daily and you think that's fine just because you haven't seen immediate consequences 20 minutes later, then stop being stupid. It is going to be a bad outcome for you later down the road. That is the consequence. I like to speak in consequences because it doesn't. People's behavior won't change unless you do it. So that's why I'm being a little harsh the way I'm talking right now, and being a little blunt here. But I'm only doing it for your own good. Stop eating like shit. Thank you for watching. And if you like what you hear, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Comment on any of my videos and tell me where you think I'm wrong or where you think I'm right. Give me your feedback. I'd love to hear it. I think feedback is necessary to... I have a whole thing on this, but it's necessary to learn and grow. And And without it, I don't have any blindside mirrors. Feedback is blindside mirrors, and I want to know where the hell I'm wrong and where I'm right, and what your comments are. So comment. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.